Hey guys, so I never really told this story to anyone except for close friends. When I was, I think, 27 years old, I dated this lady, Jewish lady, pro-Israel, nice, nice lady, good person. She came from like a well-to-do family, you know. She never really thought about money. I think her parents were basically paying for her. She had like a nice little apartment in the city, very little, with a roommate. I remember one time her sister came in, into town. I'm not gonna say from where, from out of town. And then a bunch of her friends came in from like suburban area, New York area, I guess. And I remember a bunch of them, so I was there, and they were sitting around talking about, very nonchalantly, very almost, flippantly, about all of the antidepressants they were on, all the pills they were on. And I asked the girl I was dating, I was like, are you taking this stuff? She was like, yeah. I take like half of this stuff, half a pill, I don't think so much. And I'm thinking to myself, folks, again, I come from the former Soviet Union, right? I think she may have been the first non-Russian speaking Jewish girl I've ever dated. I've dated non-Russian speaking girls. I had dated non-Russian speaking girls before that. Not Jewish. She was the first Jewish non-Russian speaking girl, like American Jewish girl I ever dated. And I guess, up until that point I only really hung out with like people like myself, really just Russian Jewish kind of immigrant mentality people. Remember we used to go to clubs, we more or less had the same views about things, and like we understood what was normal, what wasn't, we weren't like politically correct about stuff. And honestly, I didn't really know about the world of like antidepressant drugs. I didn't know anything about that stuff, I think the closest thing that I knew about anything to do with any kind of drugs is that, in university I had to go to like a therapist, and he gave me ADD medication, ADHD to just help me study and focus and whatever. But apart from that, I didn't know anything about drugs, really. Drugs and like prescription drugs, psychiatric. And I don't know. It's actually crazy, I gotta fess up. Like basically, what ended up happening is, I didn't really formally, break up with her. I just kind of like, I didn't ghost her either. I just kind of swam away. I think at one point I told her, I'm like, listen, this is, I'm sorry, like this is not for me. I don't think we I don't think we have the same values, and I think I didn't tell her, that I thought it was. Listen, you could say, well, I could have sat down, I could have spoken to her about it. The thing is, like, it's two things, if she has a Dafka clinical problem, or she had, right? So who am I to dismiss that, right? People have all kinds of stuff, right? Nobody to judge her, but just the way she was talking about it, and like you could say I could have influenced her. Honestly, I didn't know enough at the time to, sit there with her and like talk to her about it. I was like, you know what? Whatever. I was looking for other things in life. Let's put it that way. So then I remember, shortly after that, I ended up DJing. Actually, it was right after that, DJing a New Year's party. It was back when I was, DJing like vinyl records, and it was a private home. It was like a loft. The home of this girl. She was a pharma rep, and this is the time when pharmaceutical reps could go and basically give like little samples to doctors. It was explained to me like a couple of days ago that that's not done anymore. I could be wrong, but that's what it was told to me. So it's funny. So this was New Year's. So this girl comes out. She's the host, and she puts out food and whatever. And then she puts out like a punch bowl, but inside the punch bowl is what? All the samples she has left over from like samples she didn't give out to doctors. Like different. I'm like, what is this? She's like, oh, so we have Prozac and this and that. Again, like flippant discussion about, I don't know, all kinds of like antidepressants. Folks, why am I getting into this? And why is this relevant, what I'm saying to you? I get the feeling that a lot of these people, let alone just a lot of people in general, but a lot of these people who specifically, have celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk. You look at these women, it's largely women, men too, but mostly women. You look at the videos and you're looking at people who are on all sorts of pills, folks. And they don't see a problem with that. They are emotionally incontinent, psychologically and emotionally incontinent, completely unhinged, and no one sees a problem with it. They don't see a problem with it. No one calls them out for it. You're not supposed to judge people, so to speak, for their, whatever psychological condition. And this is what this is, guys. But it's crazy, like, I just remember, for me, I started noticing it all the way back in 2006, 2007, and I really didn't understand what was going on. I really didn't, again, I'm like, in some ways I'm like kind of, I don't want to say I'm innocent, but it's like, it's just like, whatever, clueless, Folks, I'm, as my friend Frank likes to say, I'm a simple man in that regard. I don't, if I have a problem, I try to solve it not with pills. Even now, guys, I just got recently, I had like a bit of a cold, some respiratory stuff, and they gave me these like, what is it, like steroids or something like that, right? It's like pills. And I asked the lady, I'm like, the nurse practitioner or whatever the hell she is, she's like, I'm like, is there any side effects to this? She's like, oh yeah, palpitations. But the way she said it was like so flip. I'm like, oh, whoop-de-doo, oh, palpitations. Oh, is that all? Okay. She's like, all right, I'll give you pills and it tapers off. You take 3 the first day and then 2 the second day. I'm like, okay. It's like, I don't know. It's like, folks, you ever get the feeling that they're just trying to kill us? and this includes these ladies. These ladies have you watch these videos, guys. They have had their heads scrambled. Their brains have been thoroughly scrambled eggs. And I think it was what's his name recently said, RFK. Like some big percentage. I don't remember what the number he quoted. a big percentage of people in this country are on some kind of these antidepressants, SSRIs, etc., etc. I'm gonna lump it all together for the purposes of my point, because it's really, at this point there's really no difference, folks. I mean, so you have these people on these SSRIs, and then they're in school, they're being taught that it's normal for them to feel how they feel, and then whatever. Maybe they, if they're a boy, maybe they're a girl. If they're a girl, vice versa. Maybe they're a boy. Maybe they're both, or maybe they feel, we used to have this. I don't know if it wasn't a cartoon. It was, like these puppets. It was a program in the Soviet Union for kids. Maybe a cartoon. I remember it was. It was like, а может быть корова, может быть собака, а может быть ворона, maybe a cow, maybe a dog, maybe a crow. Folks, this is what this is. Maybe I'm a boy, maybe I'm a girl, maybe I'm both, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that. Maybe, I don't know, whatever. Whatever I feel like. As Michael Savage used to say, feelings. Whatever I feel like. Folks, I mean, so you combine that with the drugs, and you get this entire generation of just emotionally incontinent people. I guess they're people. And now we have the statistic. Folks, I mean, think about this. I always say I'm all for people's rights. But here's the problem. There's a big difference between rights and power. This is what they want, power, right? Okay, so who wants power? They say that 25% of all teenagers in high school, 13 to 17 years old, identify as trans. Folks, if you're, let's just say that, for argument's sake, to make that math easy, there's 400 million people in America. You want to tell me that the future of America is going to be 100 million transgender people? Let's say if we cut that in half, maybe half of them are just like whatever, right? Experimenting or whatever. They're like playing around, horsing around, right? 50 million transgender people in America, folks. You're talking about, at this point, two things. One is insane level of population control. Unless these people still somehow figure out how to, procreate, or I don't know what. They probably will. I mean, the second thing is, folks, America's going to turn into Sodom if it's not already. Like it's gonna be what's called confirmed Sodom, Sodom and Gomorrah, and Hashem is gonna have to just, I know he sent a rainbow. He showed Noah a rainbow to signify he's never gonna destroy the world again. He's not gonna destroy the world again. But folks, countries fall, right? Many countries, many empires have fallen because of the very thing that I'm describing. Rome, Greece, just to name two. If that's not enough for you. I think Rome is the most prominent example of this, guys, of what I'm talking about. If you think they didn't have this in Rome, if you think Rome did not deteriorate to what I'm describing, you're mistaken, guys. And by the way, notice what Rome had in common with the people who were driving these movements in Rome. Rome deteriorated into a place that went against the Jews, and went against the Jews, were practicing Torah. And eventually they destroyed the temple. In Jerusalem, not only destroyed the temple, they renamed our country to Palestina. So, a bunch of Gnostic fruitcakes, at that time, were responsible for changing the name of Israel to Palestina, because they cannot have the people who refuse to give up on God and the Torah get in the way of their fruity dreams of all the alphabet soup and all their fruity stuff. They want to do what they want to do. You know, what's the Ace Ventura? How selfish of me. Let's do all the things that you want to do. Folks, we're 2,000 years later. In the words of King Solomon, ain't nothing new under the sun. So guys, it's crazy what's happened in the last, 20 years since I noticed what I noticed, I guess in my DJ heyday, I guess you could say. Again, I was totally oblivious to this stuff. Totally oblivious. I mean, the person I was dating, I saw it as a problem. It bothered me. And then I saw what I saw subsequently to that. And then I realized, okay, something's going on. But I didn't think it would get to this point where people are just hopped up on stuff. They're emotionally incontinent. They can't think straight. You can't talk to them. They have a particular, their whole life, their whole identity of their life, their whole goal, dreams and hopes and dreams are centered around what they do in the bedroom. Folks, think about this. Not what they accomplish, not what they build, not what they, discover, but where they stick their genitals, or what's stuck inside of them. Is that normal, folks? That goes beyond, in my opinion, that goes beyond Rome. Because at least Rome wanted to build things and conquer and, whatever it is, right? They wanted to build a civilization, right? It got a little crazy, but, with these people, it's just, they're just obsessed. They're obsessed with one thing, and it's, however they want to derive pleasure for its own sake. They're not trying to have any kids. Right? At least not as far as I know. And the only thing they want to do with kids is, I'm not even going to say what they want to do. So, folks, and now we have this person, RFK, he's trying to neutralize the pharmacological aspect of it. Folks, and that is a cash cow. I hope he has security from here to Timbuktu, guys. I really do. We understand what's going on. We understood it during Shmovid, and it continues to this day. And it's a spiritual issue at this point. It's kind of what I said. I remember, I'll end with this, guys. I was once talking to a friend of mine who's a psychiatrist for adolescent teenagers, medication management. So I asked him, I told him, don't you think that people's psychological problems are physiological manifestations of spiritual issues? He told me, Gregory, you're absolutely right. But if the medical profession admitted that, people like me would be out of a job. And that, my friends, I say to you, good Yontif, Hi Elul, and in the words of Cleo McDowell, young man, if you want to keep working here, lay off the drugs. Alright guys, Shabbat Shalom.